Will you be able to verify that it's come from that? Or
Oh,
you,
I did.
you did? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we live
Yeah.
finally. It
Yeah, you
it,
gotta,
it took a good. Well, you were more like coaching on the sideline with the white towel
you
about
got it, coach. Rocky, get up.
so for those that we get blessed by that you check us out either live or that you check us out afterwards. We thank you for enduring and appreciate it. So we certainly got to had our endurance tested. We had a different laptop, different camera,
Yep.
different microphones, and we're gonna see how this works and welcome any feedback that we might get from you too along the way, because maybe this is better too. We'll,
Yep.
we'll, we'll see. But good morning and God bless you. It's Mark and Burrell here, two brothers talking. And again, last time I checked, we are two brothers,
We are.
and we talk.
Till I die.
Yeah, we are talking. So to others' dismay, we we are talking. Today we've got a topic to cover that we think, based on what we see today in social media, and we hear from people around us, and we also feel ourselves, we felt was pertinent, and that's household finances, but not just like the dollars and cents of it, but the emotional side of it too, like what's happening in your family because of household finances and what's happening in today's family. Before we get started, one of the things that we take really seriously, had a lot to do with why we started this podcast, is we wanted to really sponsor other causes, other like-minded folks that are doing interesting things, and we also have causes of our own that we sponsor in addition to this, and promote's probably the better word to use than sponsor. So there is a brand we want to mention to you. I'm actually wearing some attire from that brand. So is Mark.
Yep.
And we've got some good representation here, but there's a whole lot more behind this. The brand is EST33 Clothing. So go check it out and get a chance. It's definitely promoting bringing people to the kingdom and expanding the kingdom. You'll see a lot of that represented in the clothes. So that's that. And again, that's EST33clothing.com. And we'll post that and put that up in the follow up as well when we do the edit on the video. So jumping into household finances, one of the things we usually start with is kind of just scoping what we're talking about in the first place, so we can make sure it's relevant. The scope of the conversation really centered around, or was intended to center around, like what people are, starting with like what people are experiencing today. What does today's economic pressure look like? How's that showing up in the house, more often than not?
Yep.
And then, what does that mean for each of us? And then, of course, like we always try to end, each episode, what are some tools that you can use to do something about it? So we don't want to just talk about what's wrong. I shared this with Mark this weekend, actually, I think this morning, but I'll share it with anybody who's listening. One of the things that I noticed, I was doing my research about algorithms and what people look at, and some of the videos we put out have gotten some good some good traction, and I'm just wondering, like, why? What about those videos is interesting, and specifically, like, what about them is interesting? And when I looked, there were two themes that came up. It was the weirdest thing. Two themes came up as the most common things that we all look at, because we're all looking at social media. We're looking at it right now. And those two things were like toil and dismay in the world, like negative things.
Yep.
And we're just kind of drawn and intrigued by, whether it's politics or it's economics, or it's just like war and other areas, other countries, things like that. And the second theme was like finances specifically. It was like those two top themes are the things that people are looking at. So
Yeah.
so that's proof that all of us are like interested in it. It's captivating us, and probably not captivating us in a very positive way.
Right. Yep.
Right. So that's kind of what led us to have this conversation, and it starts with just those facts, like that. Those are the facts. So I guess when you think about household finances, what we want to do is help you turn what feels like a liability and a subject to an asset, like to something you feel good about. And the first things that's usually involved in feeling good about something is understanding it.
Yeah.
and facing it. So like today, I guess, Mark, I'm gonna ask you a question. Like when you think about household finances, what are some of the what are some of the ways you see, or some of the challenges, even before we even get into how it impacts the house? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing with your family, people that you talk to, people around you, social media? What are some of the challenges you see as it relates to household finances? Like how, like what are some of those gaps and problems today?
Yeah, probably one of the for what I speaking from a person who's married, I think the first hurdle is what is our mentality, what is our philosophy on money and finances in general, right? That's kind of one of the first things. And if you're single, you still have to have your own philosophy on like how am I going to handle money, how what's my approach. So I think that's do I go with a career? Am I have my own business? Like so, you got to kind of work these things out in the beginning, and then you kind of push forward from there. It's like, so what is the state of the economy? How does my philosophy fit in like how the world is working right now? So those are kind of the first two things I come to when I think about money and implementing a game plan for finances today.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of think about like I think about how money has a control or doesn't have a control on me. I guess I'll say it differently. I think about how much I think about money,
Okay.
and I hear that conversation from a lot of people around me that I love and care about, that I talk to all the time.
Right.
That might be half of our discussions might evolve around some type of monetary topic. I'm struggling with this. I got this paid off. I'm really struggling with this thing though, and hey, me and my husband or my wife, we can't agree on how we're spending, and I feel like I'm trying to hold it down. They're spending more, or vice versa.
Right.
I know I'm spending too much, and they're kind of mad at me. I need to figure that out, like all of that, and that tells me that the way we think about household finances is backwards. I think we think about household finances, and I would be curious to hear in the chats and stuff from folks that might listen later. Um, I think we think about household finances in the scope of how much we make.
Yep.
And the truth is, we should think about household finances in the scope of how much we spend.
Okay.
And today, like couples, like divorces are at an all time, continue to be high. Like they're at. I was looking at some stats last night, and they're just under 50% still. So like I
Okay.
just call it 50%. It was like 49. So and in certain communities like ours, honestly, it's a little higher.
Right.
um, and I think a lot of that's because there's so much pressure on making more, and that's like the thing you can control the least. Like you can control that sum, but you can 100% control how much you spend.
Well, yeah, and I would even take it a step further. Um, Whatever your philosophy is on spending, why do you have that philosophy in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like taking it back to the root of not just my spending, but also kind of like what is the root cause of how I spend money in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think once you work through that, then you can kind of control the spending. Because then it's a matter of changing like your mentality about why you spend and why you do what you do. Um, Kind of going to the root first.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It does seem, it seems like the challenges in like just getting out of the house for just a second and just thinking about economics in general.
Okay.
It seems like I mean things are not any cheaper than they used to be. They're all
Right.
more expensive.
Right.
Wages have not gone up like expenses gone up.
Right.
So expenses have outpaced our wage growth, our performance, and merit, increases, things like that, like whatever those things are. Companies don't do cost of living increases anymore because it's just not standard, and honestly, a lot of companies just can't afford to.
Right.
So now you got this expense wage gap that's just growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
But then you also have, you have a dynamic where people's kids need more attention today.
Right.
So you it's difficult to have two incomes, two full-time incomes in the house sometimes, depending on the family situation, because kids need more attention with all the world pressures and all the mental pressure. Like they need parents more now than ever.
Yeah.
So you got like this, you got to make a choice. I think households are not going back into the household. I think households are stuck in that. Like we're stuck trying to figure out. Okay, well, it's a two income world. We have two kids or a kid, let alone three or four,
Right.
and it's a two income world. But one of us needs to be home to like do or work part time at most to do what we need to do with our kids.
So so is it a two income? What makes it a two income world?
I do genuinely believe that while spending, we'll get to the spending in a bit,
Okay.
but I do believe spending aside, things are so expensive now that in most communities to have any type of lifestyle that's reasonable, it takes two incomes of average wage today, of average wage.
Okay.
So for instance, I'll use real numbers.
Okay.
So like if you got two people making 40,000 a piece, so for anybody listening, 40,000 would be like 18, 19, you're probably more like $19 an hour. Yeah, get you pretty close to 40,000, maybe 1950.
Okay.
20 get you just over 40,000, but it's about right there. So you're making 18, 19, 20 an hour. Two of you doing that, working full time. That's that's going to be still under $100,000 a year.
Okay.
So if you take a step back and you just look at like average apartment, is 12, $1,300, to live now, to eat and go shopping, gas, like you're gonna be spending $2,500 before you do anything that's nice to have. Like all the needs, you're at 2,500, $3,000 a month, easy. Well, that's $36,000. So you would think like, okay, well, two people making 40, but yeah, that's 40 gross. You're not bringing home 40.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Uh-huh.
each of you probably bringing home more like 32, 34.
Right.
So like it starts to shrink fast. Then you got a kid or two. Well, those expenses just went up because
Right.
I was talking about expenses for just two people,
Yeah.
right? So now you might be at break even if both of you are at 40 and 40, and you're living in a nice apartment and or a rental, let alone a house.
Right.
Because if you buy a house, well, now you got more expenses because you got to maintain it.
Right.
So that's why I think oftentimes today at average wage, you're looking at two income needs.
I think okay. If I look at it from it's probably totally unrealistic, right? But if I look at it from like a Christian perspective
Mhm.
or a God focused, I don't want to use the word Christian perspective, but like from a I want to please God perspective, then most of the things that I feel like I need in life, and I'm even talking about being a hermit somewhere off in a mountain somewhere. I'm just talking about just in general, a lot of stuff that I think I need in life, I don't really need.
Sure.
So like if my kid can go to public school. Now, don't get me wrong, you have to choose what public school you want your kid in, but kid goes to public school. Let's say I buy a cash car, um, I have rent, but I make as a household, we have $80,000 a year. I mean, realistically, I feel like that's enough. Now, I don't think it's enough in America where like there's this pressure of, hey, I have to have clothes, but I need nice clothes.
Hmm.
I need a car, but man, I want a nice car. So like I feel like unrealistically speaking, from a person who's been raised in America my whole life, I think it's enough. It just doesn't feel like enough, and I think it's because we're not necessarily trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's just like you're in this environment and you're just wired that these things are needed. When a lot of times I think, no, I don't, because I think if you take someone from a third world country or
Hmm.
even just like somewhere else where they don't have all the luxuries we have, they would be like, man, I would trade places in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not the reality. I mean, I'm raised in this environment, so it doesn't feel like you're going to want to trade places with me. But I just I think for me, like wrapping my head around this concept now will feed into me being a better spender, planner, all the other things.
Mhm.
I just don't know how realistic that is. Talking to somebody in America about, hey, you make $80,000 as a family, that's plenty, and there's like, no, it's not. I'm barely surviving.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin.
Uh-huh.
One side is like basically understanding how much you need to make to accomplish what it is you'd like to accomplish as a family.
Okay.
So So let's just say like it's one of you is financially literate,
Okay.
right? So one of you is financially literate. That's probably the person doing most of the financial planning. You hopefully y'all are talking about it. If you're married, if you're single, then you don't have to talk about it with anybody. But like either way, it's usually it's rare that both people in a marriage are financially literate based on some of the things, some of the stats I was looking at last night, which I'll share in when we post this when we do the follow ups. I'll share those stats too.
Okay.
But I think that's one side. The other side is what you're talking about is this like generational curse of financial need to spend, like where it's more than just what you need. Kind of wants feel like needs,
Yeah.
and I think it's both.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the part of that, part of it just starts with like self-awareness and recognition that it is both, and being able to discern which one you're looking at any given moment.
Yeah.
For instance, I'll give you two specific examples. You always poke me and ask like, well, give me an example. So having a Netflix account, an Amazon Prime account, a Paramount account, DirecTV, AT&T cable, like whatever you got, just Hulu, like what you just keep throwing them on there. Okay, you're spending $130 a month, $200 a month on all those things. Do you need those? The answer is absolutely not.
Right.
Period. Like there's no. I would love to hear a challenge to need that,
Right.
but like there's no. If you didn't have it, it'd be less convenient. You would want to see things that you couldn't see,
Right.
but you don't. Your life would not be less,
Yeah.
right? And so that's an example of something that all of us have. Some of those things all of us have,
Right.
but we don't need, but we kind of feel like we need them. The thing, and another side of that example of like a need, you mentioned public school, right? Like getting your kid to public school doesn't mean that they're expense free. If your
Okay.
child plays football, oh, you coming off some cash,
Right.
right? Like you got equipment to buy, you got all kinds of stuff to do. Like you coming off some money. And if they play football in school or they play a sport in school, they're probably gonna play that same sport outside of school. Now you're in the place of need or not.
Right.
Does your child need to play outside of school or not? And I think that depends on the family. Because if that child, just to finish that example out, if that child really needs structure more frequently and often than school program can provide, then you might find that structure in an athletic program outside of school,
Okay.
and that child's life might be drastically better, meaning they'll turn into a better adult later.
Right. Well, so to piggyback what you're saying, I think there are certain things that we do need, but the fact that we introduce these things that we don't really need kind of rob us from the opportunity to do the things we really need.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I guess I'll like maybe try to round that out with what you said earlier, because you said like why do you need those things? You had to ask like why do you need those things? I do think like using your example of 80,000 a year, in a household income, that can that can totally get you by with an apartment, and like you can even have maybe a couple of the things that you want
Right.
along with needs. Like you could make that work. What's going to be really difficult in most communities in the US is you're not going to buy a house later with that. Like anytime early in your life, it's going to be very difficult to buy a house. Like a house is going to require you to put 15 to 20% up unless you get a specific type of loan that requires otherwise.
Right.
So like you're talking about not just being able to manage your spending, but also saving 20, 40, even $50,000 to buy a $200,000 house. So like that, the answer to why, like what it is you want to accomplish is really important,
Right.
because if you haven't figured that out, like then it's hard to cater outside of just general best practices about spending. It's really hard to cater your spending and manage, let your household financials be an asset to you. It's really hard to get to that place because
Right.
like if you're just trying to create some generational wealth for your kids and your grandkids, well, you may have to. There might be a time for that. So like when your kid's 5 and you and your spouse are 30, 35, like it might not be generational wealth time. it might just be tight time.
Right.
Like, be really frugal, really thoughtful, save as much as you can,
Right.
and you're just saving for a house later. And
Yeah.
that saving might take 10 years.
Yeah.
So now you're 40, right? With a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old now. That might be when you buy the house.
Right.
And if you could wave a magic wand, would you want to give your child that house when they're 5 so they can enjoy it longer as a child? Sure. But that might not be reality.
Right.
And that's a hard truth to face.
Uh-huh.
So what do? We go buy the house, we get over our skis. That's why house, still house foreclosures are still higher than they've ever been in the last 30 years.
Yep.
So outside of the real estate boom in '08. So like you're like that's a tough place to be. It's a tough decision to make.
Yep.
It's a
And
really tough decision.
a lot of people, because of the pressure of those around us and what everybody else has, and not even in like a luxury perspective, but just like, hey, the kids in the families in my son's, class all have a house, and we went to their birthday party, and I need a house. You just feel like I need a house. I need to give my kid a house so he feels normal, he feels regular, and so it's like we, it's just hard choices that you got to make because everyone's philosophy has changed. What the culture says is the norm has changed, and so we're past the time where I'm gonna spend 5 years saving money to buy a house. Like people ain't wired like that anymore. I wasn't wired like that. Like
Right.
I'm not waiting 5 years to get a house. So you just whatever. And so it's just a hard topic, man. It's like, but I think it's an important topic because, and this will probably go into what we'll talk about later, because the stress of trying to live in this culture and and balancing finances, that's a lot of pressure that impacts us on like many levels,
Hmm.
spiritually, physically, mentally. And so it's definitely a topic that needs to be addressed. You just can't ignore it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem that's a good pivot. So or transition, like in the house today, it shows up in fear, anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, it shows up in guilt. I want to be able to provide for my wife better.
Uh-huh.
I want to be able to provide for my husband. I want to be able to provide for my child. Like it's all those. The guilt probably is the biggest one that's hidden. It shows up in pride.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at Joe, and he's got so and so, and I don't want it from him, but I do feel pressure to go get it. Kind of like what you were just saying. Like I feel like I should have it because Joe has it, and we went to school together, same age. Like what does Joe have that I don't?
Yeah.
Why didn't I go get those things? Those are real emotions, and we might not feel them. Like if anybody's hearing this, it's not that you would feel those emotions necessarily that explicitly, but hearing it out loud, I hope that it helps you identify when you feel them,
Right.
because it might not be as explicit when it happens,
Right.
but it's there.
Yep.
Like that foundation is the core of some of those feelings.
And then how do people? Then you got to deal with like how do I handle stress? So I'm married, and we're struggling financially, and so how do I deal with my stress? Like, do I go out with the fellas more? And now I'm not at home more. My wife's wondering, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you here? Like, why? I need help with the kids. And I need this time with my fellas. It's like, and then what happens? Like, I'm out with the fellas. Like, what? How do you handle stress? And that's all that kind of works towards issues in the home.
Mhm.
Because if you don't handle stress, you don't handle pressure well, then you do stupid stuff, and then
Right.
it's a domino effect. And it's like for me, it all kind of goes back to you know, dealing with the root cause and kind of determining what are my priorities in life. Because to me, like money is how I managing money is managing priorities. How I handle money is kind of a reflection who I am.
For sure it is.
And so it's like until I deal with that kind of stuff, I'm gonna always mismanage money.
Right.
Um, if you
Yeah,
want.
it's really. I'll use the explicit example, and I'm not trying to be crass when I say this, but it's really hard for um we're both men. I'm gonna speak for men.
Uh-huh.
It's really hard for a man to be like, my child's my priority. If you spend $400 a month at strip club, like, and you're not spending that on your child,
Right.
is you're lying.
Yeah.
Like you're lying to yourself.
Uh-huh.
is not your priority, because where you spend your time and your money is a reflection of what's important to you.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
If your wife is important to you, you are not spending your time doing things that don't benefit her or around her.
Right.
It's just that simple.
And I think people think that's not true.
Right.
I think if you go look at your bank account, you look at where your money goes, you'll probably tell yourself like, no, that's not what's really important to me. But the Bible says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Like, where are you putting the most valuable things of your life into?
Hmm.
If you look at that, it's going to tell you something about yourself. Maybe something you don't want to hear, but it's going to speak true to you because you're not lying to yourself. You're
Right.
telling yourself, this is what's important to me, and I'm gonna give you my time and my money.
Hmm.
Uh,
It's a
Sometimes
hard
people,
truth.
yeah. It's a hard truth.
But it is where this starts. Like, it starts with self recognition. It starts with owning what's, owning, like, the information says about what you're doing. And if you have a bank account, you have the information.
Uh-huh.
Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, like, when you name the next bank, like, all of them, your credit unions, like, they all have their websites. You can go online, and they have their little financial reflections. You can see, but on a single chart, like, it's an image. You don't have to be financial expert. Nothing we're talking about here. We're not naive enough to think that we're about, or nor are we skilled enough to think that we're going to sit here and teach, and you're going to receive some financial, like, mind blowing thing. Like,
Right.
our problems are not that sophisticated. We
Yeah.
would like to think they're sophisticated because that puts them out of reach of us having to solve them.
Yeah.
But they're really simple.
Yeah.
They're really simple. Pushing a boulder up a hill is simple too. It's not easy.
Uh-huh. Yep.
You
Well,
know, so I'm not saying it's easy, but it is simple.
I think the reality is like when you really think about it, I go work somewhere. They're paying me for my skill and for my time.
Hmm.
So if I waste time, I'm literally wasting my life. Like it doesn't seem like it, but if I go give you 80 hours in 2 weeks, and then I take that check and I blow it, I can't get that 80 hours back. I just like I'm wasting my life. And
Ooh.
so it's about priorities. It's about like that money, time is money. Like to
Yeah.
some degree, it's money. And it's like, man, I don't want to waste my life. Every now and then, I'm gonna take eating. I will I love to work out and I love to eat sweets.
Hmm.
And so sometimes as I've gotten
You said
older,
it like something's wrong with it.
check back with me in about 10 years, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. And the reality is like I had to tell myself, I was like, do you really want to keep like eating like this during the week and then go spend all these hours
Mhm.
trying to combat the food that you ate? I mean, you can keep doing it, but it's just gonna wear you down. And so I have to constantly remind myself, like, man, you know how much it's going to cost you to work off this chocolate cake and the cookies and it's like it costs too much. And I don't have the energy anymore to keep fighting this battle.
Right.
It's the same thing with finances. Like, I mean, if you want to work 80 hours in 2 weeks and get the check and then then blow the check and keep doing that over and over, somewhere down the road, you're gonna be exhausted, and it's going to be like mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, spiritually exhausted because you're in this hamster wheel that's just where it's going to wear you down,
Hmm.
and that's hard. That's hard.
It's really hard. I think it's hard for everybody.
Yeah.
um it's particularly difficult for men for a specific reason. Like, I think about, and this that I won't say it in advance, it's gonna sting, but it really bothered me when I
Okay.
saw it. I was looking at divorce rates in in the US, and then and who prompts the divorce versus who has the highest income in the house on average.
Okay.
So the highest income in the house was barely leaned toward men. It was
Okay.
about 65-35. So it was just over, 65% of the married households that were in question, the men made slightly, made more than the women. That could be $1,000 more, it could be $100,000 more. Like, either way, they made more.
Okay.
And the other 35%, the woman was making more. And you could get into like wage disparity between men and women, things like that, because they could be doing the same job, should be earning the same amount. Like, that is a recognized topic.
Right.
But that aside, like, it was 65-35. And then the divorces, the divorces, which are just under 50%,
Mhm.
were prompted over 75% by women. Like they actually pushed for the divorce and filed for the divorce.
Okay.
So for a man, I hear that and I think a couple of things. Because also in that same statistic, Ray, it showed that finances were the top one of the top two reasons, like disagreements and pressures of financial obligations, but in marriage, and that looks different for every marriage, but that was the general sentiment. And I thought, man, like that's tough because now a guy who's making more have had a lot of pressure to try to deliver. You would hope, I'm going to assume all the best intents.
Okay.
So like was trying to deliver, couldn't deliver, probably never talked to anybody about it,
Right.
probably never sought out any real help, was just going by what he grew up around or learned from somebody he grew up around or in school, and just kind of did the best, and it didn't work. It
Right.
wasn't enough. And the likelihood is, in the vast majority of those situations, they probably could have they like the information that told them what where the opportunities were was probably sitting in their bank account, reflection to show where they're spending their money, like you said, or sitting behind a really difficult conversation that required you to get over your pride,
Right.
or sitting behind the really tough decision to stop spending, or the tough decision to draw a boundary, which was a prior episode, and to just be like, babe, we're not going to do that. I know we both want to do it. I want to do it too.
Right.
Whatever that thing is, we can't do that right now
Right.
because we agreed this is our North Star. So like let's work to that North Star. Let's not screw it up from an impulse. Like let's agree.
Right.
And most of us, we avoid conflict so much that we don't want to have those conversations.
Right.
And it just kind of, it made me excited because there's some that's solvable.
Right.
But then it did kind of sting when I read that, because I just thought, wow, like how many of those situations, I'll say it even more specifically, how many kids wound up in split households because their mom and dad couldn't talk out finances.
Right. Do you know? Did you, when you're looking at the statistics, did you see what are the top reasons for divorce?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a long list, but I know the top few. They would cite irreconcilable differences
Right.
was the number one. So that's super vague.
Right.
The second was financial discrepancies, obligations, like just a fret around finances.
Yeah.
And the third was I think the third was communication.
Okay.
So like just couldn't communicate,
Yeah.
or wouldn't communicate. So the fact that the communication was called out explicitly and irreconcilable differences was separate from that, I got to believe communication is likely the number one reason, because a
Right.
lot of that would land like we can't reconcile. It's irreconcilable because we can't communicate.
Right. Yeah.
And this number two being finances tells me that a lot of the communication was also likely about our alignment on finances.
Right.
It might not have been because we were broke. It might have been because we weren't accelerating where I want us to go and you want us to go, and we couldn't reconcile that together.
Right. The money piece, I think I think it ends up just wearing people down.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about like how to spend it, we don't have enough, whatever it is, I think it just over time it just wears you down, which is why we all need to look at, especially when there's struggle, like not just how we spend money, but like more so like can me and my wife or me and my like whatever the dynamic is, even talking to myself about, like if I'm single, can I be honest with myself about where I am financially with the money?
Mm-hmm.
Like that communication piece, that understanding piece. We're specifically talking about marriage, but like to be able to talk through those things is probably just as important as making communication a priority when it comes to money is just as important as having enough money, having a good job and all those things. Because you could have a great job making a lot of money and it still be money still be an issue,
For sure.
because you see it all the time. I mean, wealthy people get divorces. It's like it's not like it's like the lack of money. I don't think is the issue when it comes always the issue when it comes to divorce. When
Right.
people separate for money, I think it's so much more to it than the lack of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If we got married and my expectation was we were going to buy a house, we got married at 27. We're going to buy a house at 35, and we were unable to do that, then that might cause enough strife, if I'm weak about it, to ultimately land us in a divorce eventually.
Right.
But that wasn't because that we both might have been making 150 grand a year, like real
Yeah.
good money. And it's like, well, it wasn't because we weren't making enough. It's because we weren't good stewards of
Right.
what God blessed us with,
Right.
and we didn't hold each other accountable when we weren't good stewards individually and collectively.
Right.
And that's not because we didn't have enough, right? That's because we didn't manage it correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a mix. It's a mix of these things,
Yeah.
right? So I guess one of the things about, like, we talked about how it's showing up in the house. We also know that things are not getting any less expensive. We know that there's lots of opportunity for us to be better stewards.
Right.
Um, I I would I would suggest, like it just kind of pivoting us into, what, so what, like, so what do we do about it?
Okay.
And how does this, like, what's in your control and what's not?
Right.
What's not in your control is the cost of bread at the store.
Right.
What's not in your control is how much your insurance is going to be for your car, or, like, you got to have those things. Those are things that you just need, and you're obligated to have them legally. But it's just silly, even legally aside, it's silly not to have them. You have an accident, like, so. There's some things you got to have, and making that, like, being really clear about what those things are and having a list of what you spend on those things
Right.
is, I think, really important. So I would argue that most people don't even know what they spend on those things. And it's self-admittedly, I'm always speaking from a place of, like, this guy first.
Yeah.
So, like, I self-admit I did not know, I wasn't good at understanding and having a real-time log of what I was spending at any given time.
Uh-huh.
And I've had a budget most of my life. I like to think of myself as a recovering accountant, honestly, in my soul. But the truth is, like, I was never that disciplined about it growing up,
Right.
in my 20s and 30s. Like, I just wasn't. I thought I was, though. I genuinely thought I was.
Right.
And if someone had asked me, I would have told them I was. Then I'm sure I did tell them I was,
Yep.
including my wife. But the truth was, like, I sucked at it,
Yeah.
and I needed to get more comfortable with seeing information without the layer of my pride and my emotion about it. So when you can do that, it's kind of tool number one. Like, make that list of what those needs are that you're spending money on today and how much they cost, and log that. If you want to call it a budget, you can just call it a list. Like, you don't have to be an accountant. Just make the list, write it down, and understand what those things are, and compare that to how much you're making, and understand the percentage of how much you make you spend on that.
Yeah.
So if you spend 30% of your money on your needs, 30% of what you make today is going to always go to those things. And you should never, ever touch that money. It's going to go to those things.
Yeah.
Rule number one. So go ahead. You were gonna say
I,
something.
I was gonna say, you said this earlier, like it's really not that complicated. Like, I mean, you can go buy the programs, and that's great, but it's not as complicated as it's made at times. It's like, it's simple as step one, like you just said, man, sit down and look at what you're spending. Like, and what you're spending that you need to be spending, what are you spending that you don't need to be spending. And that's just being honest with yourself. You don't need a program to be honest with yourself about, like, what you're spending money on, and what you shouldn't be spending money on. Because the reality is, like, you go buy somebody's program, a lot of them people, they're running that business, and that business is struggling, and they're dependent on you to make their bills, and they look like they got money, but they really don't. So
Right.
it's like, depending on other people to fix your problems is, it's not really the answer. Sometimes what's really the answer is, like, sitting down and just being really honest with yourself about life and where you are and why you're there. Nobody else needs to know. That's
Mhm.
just you and the Lord. Lord,
Mhm.
why am I here? Like, what's wrong with my finances? And then start looking, and you'll start seeing some stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think, yeah, you bring up a good point too. So you and the Lord first. The second thing I would suggest is, I do think that, like, most of us have one person around us that maybe doesn't look like they got it all together financially, or you assume they don't,
Yeah.
or what have you. But usually there's one person around you, and it's probably the person you have the most pride against talking to, because you don't want to disappoint them, or you don't want to look like you need some help. But talk to somebody outside of yourself. Sometimes we just need, no different than a therapist with your emotions. You need a therapist with your finances. You need somebody to tell you what you are unwilling to accept.
A lot of times, if you're married, a lot of times it's your spouse,
Yeah.
because usually
Well, but
they're one.
if both of you got there, it might not be either one of you.
Well,
So, because it take two to tango.
yeah,
Like
it
it's,
do.
it could be your
Uh-huh.
spouse, but like honestly, if both of y'all are in a financial pickle, if y'all together, then one of you can't be in a financial pickle without the other.
Right, right,
So if y'all, whether you know it or not, so if y'all are together, maybe neither of you know what to do next,
right.
and that is okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like ask, right? So anyone who knows me, I'm willing to have those conversations. I seek out people to have those conversations all the time to
Right.
help to solicit their advice. I don't have it all figured out, and I don't think I'll ever have so much figured out that I wouldn't benefit from that advice.
Yeah,
Like there's no point where you stop learning.
yeah,
So it's like ask, and if you haven't asked anybody in a year, that's too long.
yeah,
Like you missing an opportunity.
yeah.
Ask. Um, it don't mean you have to divulge all your business.
Right.
It just means that you can solicit some advice, and you just need to be a little vulnerable. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And you can solicit advice. The last thing, and I want to pivot to you to anything that you want to add here. The last thing I would suggest is really deciding, kind of goes to the precursor conversation, like decide what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the first place, and make sure that it's realistic,
Yeah.
and not realistic like you don't deserve great things. I mean realistic in the timing.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm gonna buy a 300,000 or $400,000 house. Like, dude, you just moved out of your mom's house
Yeah, yeah,
like last year. You're
yeah.
probably not gonna buy that unless you got a million somewhere. Like, you're probably not gonna go buy that.
Yeah.
So, but you can have that if that's what you want, and you can pray about it, and that's what you feel like you need to go pursue.
Right.
There's a way to get it, but just write that down and align on it with, if you're single, obviously, with it's just you, but align on it with your spouse if you're married.
Yep.
Have that conversation, and y'all's dreams and aspirations get put on the table, and that those cards on the table become a map, right? And you add a timeline that's reasonable to that map.
Yep.
And if you feel too much pressure with that timeline, you should probably make that timeline longer.
Yep. But I think on my end, what I look at is priorities. I think, like, if I go through my bank account and I see, man, you go out to eat, you know, you spend $200 a week on eating out at lunch or whatever, then I think I can tell myself, hey, stop spending so much money eating out. And I mean, okay, but what might be a bigger thing for me is like, well, I mean, like, if you want to be healthy, like, what does this look like down the road?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you going to keep eating? Like, see, that's a hard conversation that I have with myself. And it's like, well, I mean, like, are you sure this is what you want to do? What does this look like 5 years from now? Like, not just financially, but like physically. And then, like, okay, so now I want to eat healthier. Well, eating healthier might be a little more expensive, maybe. Okay, but I'm good with that priority shift, because that's actually an investment. Because if I continue eating like this,
Mm-hmm.
now I got doctor bills, I got other stuff I got to deal with down the road. So it's like, I think at the end of the day, when you make the right things a priority, I think it kind of gradually kind of will work itself out.
Mm-hmm.
If I make the right things a priority, and I'm realistic with what you just mentioned with the timeline at being certain places, I think in general that'll help you get a good start. It's not going to fix everything, because you have to develop your own philosophy on, like, investing and 401k and pensions and all those different things. But like, getting those priorities straight, I think for me is like, it's like the kind of like the foundational piece,
Yeah, table
right?
stakes.
Yeah. The problem is, it's like, if I have an issue right now financially, I don't have time to like look at priorities, and like, I'm looking at how do I fix this like next week, because I got to pay these bills. And I think that's the dilemma that most people have, is like, when you recognize the problem, it's the fire is so hot that you don't have time to like take your time and go talk to your buddy. Like, it's like, no, I need to fix this right now. and that's usually when we make kind of risky choices and decisions.
You saying that like put two more things on my head because you're right. Like what I was the suggestions or the tools that we just talked about, most of them are like they're foundational. So when you're in the heat, like it's hard to do those things.
Yeah.
So two quick things. One thing my dad kind of he used to always say this. He actually just told I think he just told my daughter and my son this the other day. Um, you do like have you ever gone to work and not gotten paid? Like you worked the whole shift or 2 weeks and they just didn't pay you.
Yeah.
Then why would you keep not paying yourself? Because that's what you're doing. Like if you don't save any money for yourself and protect yourself
Right.
or take care of yourself,
Yeah.
you're not paying. You are literally doing what you would never accept. You're doing to yourself what you would never accept from anybody else.
Right.
You could change that in the next time you get paid.
Yeah.
Like you need to do that. That might sound counterintuitive to controlling your spending, but you're saving. Like your anxiety level will be better when you know you have $500 sitting over here and you didn't yesterday.
Yeah.
Like let alone 5,000.
Yeah.
So like it's that's important. It's a mental thing. It's important. The other thing that's probably a lot more tactical that you made me think of, and this is where pride comes in. Whatever those expenses are, that when you look at your list, like whatever those expenses are, you need to before you add a thing, you need to think about the top three biggest, most expensive things on that list, and if you can cut them or not.
Mm.
Like I for sure, I have let a car go back in repo before,
Just uh,
just to free my expenses up.
yep.
Absolutely did. Like years has been a long time, but I did that,
Uh-huh.
and I'll tell you the emotions I went through. I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
For the few people that knew, I was I felt guilt about it.
Yeah.
Like I because at that time we had the kids and stuff. Like I felt like I wasn't a good provider
Yeah.
because I had to do that. But it was the right decision.
Yeah.
It was the absolute, and I felt a relief. I like literally less than 24 hours. I went through those emotions. The next morning when I woke up, I felt
Yeah.
such a relief
Yeah.
because I'm like, we didn't need that other vehicle,
Yeah.
yeah, or we didn't need that expense and cutting it off, it was liberating because then at that like financially for obvious reasons it was liberating, but the most impactful reason for me is that it was liberating because I knew who was in control now. My paycheck and my expenses were not in control. I was.
Right. Yep.
And that I did not realize that I wasn't
Yeah.
until I made that decision.
Yeah.
And it was, man, you talking about I think back on those moments and I have like flashes of anxiety just thinking about the feelings I had that like the day before when I made the call, when they came to get it. Like it's just like that's that was hard.
Yeah.
That was really hard. But like you have to not worry so much about what about your pride or about what other people will think. As long as you and yours are aligned in your house, that's the right thing to do, and y'all do it,
That's what matters.
that's what matters.
Yep.
And you execute, and then don't let it sit on you afterwards either. 2 months later, you can't be like burdened by guilt because you made that call, like, or you embarrassed. You just be open about it. It is what it is. It don't mean you got to go broadcast it, but just it is what it is.
Yep.
Like most people that know me don't know I had that experience,
Right.
including my closest family. They have no idea because I didn't go shout it from the mountaintop, but it was like people that were close enough that were related to the topic. They knew, and it was hard.
Yeah. I think most people don't really care. I mean, like if my friend came to me and told me, "Hey man, I got a car repossessed or something. How can I help?"
Mm,
You know, like that's my friend.
mm,
I'm not looking to laugh. I'm not looking to
mm.
embarrass. I don't want you to feel shameful about it. It's just like, hey man, how can I help? Or I might even, if I know it's something you needed to do, I'm probably going to applaud you, man.
Yeah,
I'm going to encourage you. So the people who wouldn't care, I don't care what they think anyway. Like not really. I should
right,
care. Yeah.
right. You hope,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you would hope.
Yeah.
So, so hopefully, anything else on your side?
No, no, no. I think that's a great starting point. What we talked about today, I think that's is really good starting point for people.
Good deal. So we y'all notice we kept it simple. That was intentional. And solving problems, solving big problems usually is simple.
Yeah.
We hope that blesses somebody. And again, apologies for getting started late, but we kept our commitment to keeping our cadence, and we're going strong. So
We're here.
yeah, we're here. So we'll see y'all next time, and God bless you.
God bless you.